good afternoon, class. I'm James, and today I'm going to tell you why you should smoke cigarettes. And now you might wonder, your whole life you've been told not to do that, from doctors to your dad. Maybe you were like me, you were younger, you'd walk by a restaurant or a gas station, you'd see sequestered smokers outside, pushing into the dark cubby holes of society because we're from the generation of no smoking inside. And if you were like me, you thought, that smells terrible. And you were told it causes cancer and all this horrible stuff. So you thought, why would I ever do that? Well, you get a little older and you smoke the first Marlboro Red, knees get a little shaky. You're like, well, hold on, what's this all about? Well, basically what I'm getting into is I'm not going to tell you actually to go out later today, buy a pack of Cowboy Killers and sit under the bridge at I-35 with some Waco vagrants. But I'm going to talk to you about how there's kind of two sides to every coin, and there really is a silver lining to everything. And like we like to think of things as bad or good, most things are on a spectrum. And more importantly, or more specifically what I'm going to get into is nicotine as a chemical and how it actually is on its own as a pure chemical good for you. And there's a lot of positives. First of all, as you can see from my picture, you can see how rugged and tough that cowboy looks right there. It's the Marlboro Man. Nicotine has been found to boost testosterone. From the NIH, a study on cigarette smoking and testosterone levels, they found in middle-aged men, those who were serial smokers, they had upwards of about 15% higher levels of testosterone than those who were non-smokers. So that, and then paired with women actually find smokers and drinkers more desirable. That was a study, the curious case of women and their attraction to smoking men. So your testosterone levels are higher. I mean, we see in pop culture and in Hollywood, the cigarette, there's just something that looks tough. You look a little more, grizzly, manly. I personally have fallen victim to the vaping, and I'll admit, you don't look cool when you do it. You got a little light up USB, you blow out vapor. If I could smoke inside, I would. But, so, yeah, I mean, while this is kind of a goofy topic, and I'm making it out like, yeah, go smoke cigarettes. I'm more so saying like nicotine is actually quite good for you, specifically the brain. They found in rats and then in humans that it helps with short-term focus. So it's similar to coffee or Adderall. It's like an amphetamine and upper. It helps you retain information. I was watching Joe Rogan, the greatest intellectual of our era, and he was saying, before his podcast, he'll rip one of those little bits, and he's like, I just lock in, I remember everything. I just find my memory retention's great, I'm focused on what the person's saying. So I was like, well, what if there's anything to this? So I started looking it up, and it's great for your brain, like memory-wise. It helps with the long-term, again, another long-term study from the NIH, on cigarette smoking and Alzheimer's. They found Alzheimer's and dementia levels were much lower because the protein synthesis in your brain that builds up that causes Alzheimer's. When people have nicotine, they just weren't getting that. So they just found their levels were much lower. So now again, obviously, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like it doesn't affect your lungs. Because as I would tell my mom when I give her a similar spiel when she get mad at me, I'd say the Marlboro Man never dies because that was a catchphrase. Turns out he died at 52 of lung cancer. But if you're gonna do it, there's this new product called Zyn, which is kind of like what vape is to cigarettes. Zyn is like that for like Copenhagen tobacco, like chewers and dippers. And my friends that like play sports or like play football still, they can't really do like cigarettes or vape or anything like that because they're like, oh, my lungs are bad. So they would do the Zyn and they were like, yeah, I feel great. You just feel focused. You feel like more present, more alive, because it is a stimulant of the brain, And that doesn't affect your lungs because Zyn is just like a little pouch of nicotine without all the worries of like gum disease, your teeth falling out and stuff. Because the problem with nicotine is like it's so taboo and like we're told it's so terrible from all angles, which I just find peculiar. Like as we're starting to normalize and like recreational marijuana, like THC, like objectively dumps down your brain. Nicotine like brings you back up. It's a stimulant. It helps you to focus. And I just think it's always been interesting to me, like as like we're caffeine drinkers. Most people probably drink coffee. The withdrawals from caffeine I found because I quit. Unfortunately, recently I relapsed, but I quit for almost 2 years, and I found that the withdrawals of nicotine were not as bad as caffeine. People were talking. I was reading online like people quit coffee caffeine and nicotine are almost identical. So I guess my point is that again, don't go out and smoke. You'll wake up coughing. It's not great, but maybe try a little nicotine gum while you're doing homework. It'll help you focus. Maybe try Zen or something and just see if there's any benefits to you. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is you can find peer-reviewed studies on anything and give you confirmation bias. Mine just happened to be nicotine, and maybe just look into things when there's always good to bad, and there's always bad to good. There's no solidified, this is bad for you, this is good for you. Try something out and maybe looking into it for yourself, see what you think. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the line at 7-Eleven. I like Marlboro Golds. Thank you very much.